This is going to be a fascinating class because we are really dealing with essentials. We are dealing with major concepts, and in order to set up the structure for this class, I'd like to use the blackboard for a moment in order to write some numbers. The first set is obvious to all of you. 613 is the most fundamental of numbers for a Jew. There are 613 mitzvot. We all know that. But we're going to break that down into two different categories. 248 and 365. Jewish law, as any system, even as directions from a parent to a child, contains within it, this is what you must do, and this is what you daren't do. In Hebrew, mitzvot aseh and mitzvot lo saseh. Do's and don'ts. Somebody once explained to me why in traffic lights, do you know which one is on top in traffic lights? The green or the red? A lot of people don't notice. The red. Because it is far more important to know when to stop than it is to know when to go. It doesn't make that much difference if you're not moving when you're supposed to go. But if you don't stop when you're supposed to stop, then that can be extremely dangerous. I'd like to apply that to a recognition of why there are so many more don'ts than do's. It is more important to tell you when to stop and not do something than to tell you when to do something. These numbers are significant as well in another way. It is fascinating that our sages relate the 248 number corresponding to mitzvot aseh, what you're supposed to do, to the organs of the body, and they are all identified. There are 248 Evarim. It is as if every part of our body strives to do the right thing. They're positive aspects. I think I have an interesting way to describe this concept. It's Jewish acupuncture. Just like the Chinese will say that there are parts of the body which extend far more. You can touch spot and key location, and it has an effect throughout the entire body. They are even identified by Kabbalah, which ones they are and which mitzvot. 248. You know that the first Jew observed all mitzvot. He did even before he received the Torah. How could he have done it before he received the Torah? Intuitively. It is because the organs of his body almost demanded that he live the right way. Our bodies demand that we do the right thing. The name of the first Jew was Abraham. I'd like to show you something in gematria, the system of numbers. Aleph is 1, and Beis is 2, and Resh is 200, and Hey is 5, and Mem is 40. Can you give me a total on that? 248. Isn't that remarkable? Abraham's very essence, his name bespoke the totality of the parts of his body which sought to do the right thing, to fulfill the positive commandments. The 365, the don'ts, clearly relate to a number that is well known, not only to the Jew, but to the entire world. It is the accurate count of days of the year. Even though we follow a lunar calendar, that point ought to be expressed. The lunar calendar is the way in which we are told to count time for an important reason. The moon reflects symbolically the Jewish people. The moon has stages There are times when it shines fully, and there are times when it goes down to the eye. It has its ups and downs, and so do the Jewish people have their ups and downs. We are compared to the moon, and we have our stages. But even as we use a lunar calendar, we adjust it regularly to the solar because we know the reality is 365. And 365, therefore, is a correct number for us also. And 365 every day of the year, we are to be aware of what we dare not do. So this breakdown is significant and has a symbolic correspondence that I wanted to share with you before we proceed. So this breakdown of the numbers has a significance for us that we can readily grasp. It bespeaks two different categories, the 365 don'ts and the 248 do's, the positive and the negative, rooted in the days of the year and the organs of the body. Now, when we said that all mitzvahs are equal, we meant all positive mitzvahs, what you're supposed to do because you don't know the reward for mitzvahs. Positive commandments have rewards. Negatives have punishments. And punishments are in fact clearly indicated in the Torah, and they differ with regard to the particular crime. Hence, we know the level of severity of a crime by the intensity of the punishment. And we have basically three kinds of punishments, as I explained in the chapter in the book. I think one could just, to remember them, say they're the three M's, but not three M's, the three Mems. They are Mammon, Malkot, which are lashes, and Mita, which is death. I'd like to say something about each of these in developing ideas that I didn't have an opportunity to do in the book. First, with regards to monetary punishments or fines. When someone steals, he is obligated to pay back double. Now, when you stop and think about that, that isn't really double, but it is a fulfillment of a master principle of a concept in Jewish law, which I want to develop with you a bit further. I was going to say you, but I wouldn't say you. If someone were to steal $100 from me, to say that he has to give me back $100 would simply mean what? You tried and you weren't successful. Give it back. Well, try again another time. To send you to jail is not a Torah option, and I'm going to explain that to you in a while. Jail doesn't accomplish anything. Jail is too strict a punishment because it deprives you of freedom and it doesn't teach you anything. What you are supposed to do if you steal $100 is give back $200. And how does one understand a payment of $200? $200 is really pay back what you stole plus do what you did to me to yourself. You wanted to deprive me of $100. Therefore, you are to be deprived of $100. Have happened to you what you wanted to do to another. What do we call that principle? What is the phrase for that principle?
Mida keneged mida.
Measure for measure. Absolutely correct. We find that in the Torah in many instances. It's God's way of dealing with punishment. Do you know why the Egyptians drowned at the Red Sea? It wasn't just by accident. It wasn't just that they had to die, and therefore that was a good method for punishing them. They drowned because they had drowned Jewish babies, and therefore they had to drown.
Rabbi, why is it so important that that be the precise method of punishment?
Excellent question. And the point is, first of all, obviously it's fair. That's what you did, that's what happens to you, but it's even more than that. The Talmud is intent on emphasizing the second even more than the first. If the Egyptians would have died in any other way, if there would have been a plague of some sort, the world would have said, they might have thought, well, those are the breaks. Unfortunately, we died, but they would not have related their death to the specific crime which caused it. A measure-for-measure punishment is a clear-cut linkage between the reason for the punishment and what occurred. It is showing you why this happened. And that's what God does as He punishes people. It can be, says the Mishnah, direct, and it can even be metaphorical. And I'd like to explain that because this is such a magnificent and total concept. Samson had his eyes taken out. He was blinded. Do you know that the Mishnah says that this is a category of measure for measure? In what way? Because Samson lusted after his eyes. He strayed with his eyes concerning Philistine women. If he sinned with his eyes, then he was punished with his eyes. And it became clear, certainly to him, that the reason he was blinded was because he sinned in that regard.